The Indiana Pacers used to be a real playoff contender, but for the second straight year, they're missing the playoffs for the first time since 2010. Trading Domantas Sabonis and Caris LeVert at the trade deadline this season, the Pacers seem to be moving towards a new era, with Tyrese Haliburton being the new face of their franchise. Since joining the Pacers, Tyrese Haliburton has averaged 16.5 points, 4 boards, almost 10 dimes, and has shot 39.7% from beyond the arc. With the emergence of Haliburton in the backcourt, the Pacers not only have a new direction to trend towards as a franchise, but now they got some questions to answer. What are they going to do about Malcolm Brogdon's future? Brogdon, he received a 2-year $45 million extension in October, and keeping him under contract through the 2024-25 season. But listen, this deal was given to him before the Pacers decided to do a quote-unquote rebuild. Now, heading into the offseason and expected to land a top 10 pick in the 2022 NBA draft, the Pacers could very much trend towards building a young core. And this could mean looking to trade Malcolm Brogdon either ahead of the draft, for more draft assets, or shortly thereafter. Here's a very important stat for you guys to know. Over the last 3 seasons, Brogdon, he's averaged 18.9 points, 5 boards, 6.5 dimes, and has shot 44.7 from the floor. Still proving to be an all-around threat at either point guard or shooting guard position, Brogdon, he could be a sneaky trade target for several teams heading into this offseason. A team that comes to mind is the New York Knicks. They've had a very disappointing year, and heading into their offseason, team president Leon Rose and GM Scott Perry are going to be turning their attention to finding a reliable, consistent point guard to replace Kemba Walker, and possibly Derrick Rose. Brogdon, we know, is a two-way threat. He could be a very good fit for this Knicks team. Now, he is owed $67.6 million over the next 3 seasons, but he could be their long-term solution. And for the time being, in the backcourt, and the Knicks would have plenty of money and opportunities to still add talent to their roster after trading for the Pacers guard. We all know the Pacers have made their intentions to quote-unquote retool instead of rebuild very, very clear. But this does not mean that Malcolm Brogdon is off the table in trade discussions around the league. His name is front and center come the NBA draft. We all know Tom Thibodeau made the Knicks a force defensively last season, and they have lost their touch on defense this year. Not only do they need more offensive talent, but they need to shore things up on defense as well, which is why Malcolm Brogdon would be a perfect fit for this team. As far as defensively for Brogdon, he's always been a hard-nosed defender on the perimeter, and since the start of last season, he's averaged 20 points per game while shooting 36.3% from beyond the arc. He's able to lead the offense as well as put in his weight defensively. He'd be a nice fit next to Julius Randle if the Knicks decide to keep him. And also, RJ Barrett would be a huge recipient of that Malcolm Brogdon playmaking. The Jazz, they held the best regular season record in the NBA last season, and they could be looking to add a point guard to their team. They lost 4 straight games to the Clippers in the Western Conference semifinals, and now this season, they're trending downwards ahead of the playoffs. It appears that changes could be in store for the Jazz in the offseason to put more talent around Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, which is why someone like Malcolm Brogdon could be a huge target for them come this summer. Now, his long-term contract may be a problem for Utah, as they've had a little bit of a cap problem on their hands heading into the offseason. But the futures of Bojan Bogdanovic and Mike Conley are definitely in question. Now, if the Jazz decide to move on from Conley, they could go ahead and utilize Jordan Clarkson alongside Donovan Mitchell. But it makes much more sense for them to keep him on the bench and bring in another scoring weapon like Malcolm Brogdon. We need to keep an eye on the Jazz heading into the offseason in regards to making a decent sized trade, especially if they fail to make it past the Western Conference semifinals again. And last but not least, the Los Angeles Clippers. This is the worst kept secret in the NBA heading into the offseason, is that the Clippers are gonna be buyers, and I mean big time buyers. Now, for months leading up to the trade deadline, the Clippers were looking to add another backcourt talent to complement the play of Reggie Jackson. And while they did add Norman Powell and Robert Covington in the offseason, owner Steve Ballmer has proven that he's not afraid to pay a ton of taxes to have a championship contending team. LA might not look like a real title threat right now, but with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George fully healthy next season, with the additions of Covington and Powell, dude, this team all of a sudden looks like a balanced two-way force in the Western Conference. Adding another backcourt talent seems to be the main priority of the Clippers right now, which is why Brogdon could be the player that they target. Now, currently projected to close to $20 million over the tax line heading into the offseason, many would think that the Clippers do not have the ability to make a trade for Brogdon, who is set to make $22.6 million next year. But Marcus Morris Sr., he could be a player that the Clippers look to move, especially with him set to make $16.3 million next season. Moving Morris could open up more playing time for Norman Powell, Terrence Mann, and Luka Kennard next season, as well as opening up cap space for the Clippers to bring in a player like Malcolm Brogdon's caliber. You guys, in the comment section, let me know what you think which team would be best suited for Malcolm Brogdon. He wants to play for a contender. Do the Pacers are going to ask too much for him in return? I don't know. I think the Knicks would be a great fit. But just let me know in the comment section what you guys think. And you guys know, tomorrow we'll be back better than ever with some more Indiana Pacers basketball. But until then, like always, I'll save y'all a seat. Peace.